Well, hello. Welcome back to episode 3 of Code AI podcast with me, Caz, and that guy,
This guy.
Charlie. What's on your t-shirt?
Oh, it's for I bought this on LinkedIn. It is
Looks like a
the
hockey
fight.
player.
Yeah, so it's a hockey player. There's a retailer, and so for context, our backgrounds are in SEO, and we have an agency that works with dispensaries for SEO, and one of them was doing this fundraiser for basically to fight against cancer. So there is a St. Louis Blues player, scary dude. Uh, called him the sheriff, the tough guy on the team, the fighter, and it was raising funds for it. So it is I can't read this upside down. Fight like Chase. His name was Kelly Chase, and he was a dangerous dude. He was an absolute savage. He just punch your face in. He was a bodyguard for like Brett Hull, guys that like if anybody touched like the scorer on the team, he would just go and just pound their face in. So it was a um, fundraiser for him. So it's a cool cause. Even though like even though we work with dispensaries, I like don't partake in cannabis at all. Not edible. I took an edible the other night. I literally didn't fall asleep till like 4. That was 3, 4 nights ago. Yeah. And I took it for insomnia because I have insomnia and it just like, made it worse. So yeah,
Huh.
that's all. Anyways,
Well, we're episode 3. We have a guest on this episode, and there was a heated discussion prior to the guest coming on that stemmed from a conversation with my daughter about how to pronounce his name. Because I was letting her know that we had a podcast guest on, and I told her his name, and she laughed in my face. She thought it was the funniest thing ever, because his name, how I would pronounce it, is Bernard. Bernard Huang. He is the CEO and founder of Clearscope. Super nice guy, so incredibly informed in the AI space. So it's a great podcast. He's so insightful and informed, and you can tell it's definitely a passion of his. However, that being said, that's not how it's pronounced here. It's pronounced Bernard. Bernard?
Bernard.
Bernard. And so I was telling our daughter about this, and she's like, well, how do you say the name of the dog? And I thought about it for a second, and I was trying to think what she was talking about, but then she was talking about a Saint Bernard or Bernard. Because that's the dog that goes up the mountains that has the barrel on his
Yeah,
neck.
yeah.
And yeah, that to me is a Saint Bernard. But apparently it's not. It's Bernard. I did pronounce it
Bernard.
correctly when we were introducing him, but he's super nice, super insightful, and gave a great recommendation for a barbecue place in Austin or near Austin. So
Yeah.
you have to listen to the podcast to find out exactly where he suggested to go. So what have you been up to? Anything exciting?
Yeah, I went to Trestle yesterday. I was going to go on Sunday. So we record on Tuesdays. I went yesterday, and it was nice because there wasn't a lot of people on. It wasn't crowded. So like if you ski, like when you go on weekends, it's crowded. I went up, and Trestle is a downhill mountain bike park. So I buzzed up there. I'm in Denver, so I can buzz up to Winter Park in an hour and a half. But I felt like an absolute donkey. I made it from Denver. I buzzed up and just straight west. I got about 25 minutes up, and I realized I forgot my helmet. And I need a helmet. I go about not 40, about 35, and I had a really bad crash a couple of years ago. So I just got like this new helmet. It was just released, and I'm learning not to just ride my brakes, how to go faster. And I thought about just renting one just to save the time. And I'm like, no, I'm coming back to get it. So that I know, riveting news, by the way, just riveting news that I forgot my helmet. Yeah, buzzed back up, felt like an absolute dummy. And it was so nice just to have trails like you can scope a line, you can hop off a trail, then you can kind of like walk, like here's a gap or like a jump, and you can kind of scope it a little bit better without fear of somebody, riding it like they should be, or, ripping behind you. So that was cool. My lower back hurts, and I didn't do anything like that crazy. I don't know. I think I'm just getting old.
That is
Um,
certainly old age.
yeah, so I'm gonna go back up later this week. And it's just the cool mountain air. Like you can't find it's so like relaxing, the cool
Mm.
crisp air of a mountain town. So that was cool. Went to a baseball game. Where did we go? Friday or Saturday? I don't know. Baseball's just not my thing. It was cool to go. Like I grew up playing competitive hockey. Baseball is just so different. So it's yeah. I was hearing from my friends that were there, like, oh, like hockey's hard to watch. It's like hard to watch on TV. It's hard to, and like I told her, like, you realize we're having a conversation right now, and the play is happening. Like, so you're telling me that baseball's hard to watch? we're like, we came here for a reason, like to watch baseball. We're not even. I don't think we've watched a moment of baseball in the hour
I
that we've been.
love baseball, though. I love the strategy behind baseball. And that's not to say other sports aren't strategic, because clearly they are. But I love the strategy behind baseball, because it obviously changes up a lot depending on what stadium you're in, who you're up against, what their lineup is,
Pitcher, yeah.
what division you're playing. Like, so I love that strategy behind baseball, like, a lot. It's funny, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but it was a long time ago, and somebody was taking me to my first ever hockey game, ice hockey as we like to call it. And we literally were in the very last row at the back, like up, like I could have seen God himself. We were that high, so high.
That's when it's
And
hard to watch.
I didn't know anything about hockey. The way I sort of likened it at the time was it was kind of like football, like soccer on ice, in terms of like, it's not a very high scoring game typically, but it's quite fast moving, or it's very fast moving. And I was like, how on earth am I going to see the puck that's like this big? And I went, but I was like, I don't know how this is. I figured I wasn't going to see much of much, but actually, even being up in the nosebleed section, like, it was so exciting to watch, and you could still see it and you could still keep up with it even that high up. And obviously since then I've sat like on the glass, right at the front, right behind the goalies, on the side near the, what's it called, benches, I guess. I've been in
Yeah,
club
yeah.
level seats, like I've been all around the arenas now. But I almost think, obviously it's a different experience if you're right up against the glass, for 100%, but like the enjoyment of it and the excitement and the fast pace, you still feel that even when you're up high. You can still, like, that like palpable, like, oh, so excitement when you're up high. And you don't get that consistently in baseball. You can get it if the game's really close. You can get it if it's like a,
Mhm.
if you're like later in the season and you're trying to, win, or like, probably later in the seasons when you're going to get it. But I think like hockey is like constant excitement and constant like heart rate, whereas baseball's kind of like pockets of that. That makes sense. And you're not going to get it in the first inning, you know.
No, the Rockies did win, and they're like by far the worst team in the entire league. Like by far, it's not even close. I
Hmm.
joked with them, I'm like, why are we buying tickets? Why don't we just show up? Like if we're the first 10 fans to the game, I'm pretty sure we can play in the game. Like I don't know why we're buying. They're that bad. They didn't think that was very funny.
Why did you even
Uh,
go? What?
well, my girlfriend's friends were there, so I was like, all right, yeah. I've gotten to know some of them pretty well, so like, okay, yeah, well, that's cool. So we had a few beers, we buzzed over there. But yeah, they're kind of telling me the same thing. By the way, that first game that you went to, was there a fight?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
don't,
there
which
was.
I,
Loves
yeah,
off, and they're
there was
just
more than one. I don't understand. I will never understand it. You obviously, being a hockey player, fully embrace it, fully understand it, think it's amazing. Personally, it's not for me, which I understand makes no sense. I'm also not the kind of person that thinks boxing is fun or MMA is fun.
mm,
I don't understand, and this is not a dig at anybody who loves it, anybody who participates in it. I think people think my sport of choice is boring. I personally just don't enjoy the violence of it. And I don't understand how you can be watching a professional game and they just start smacking the shit out of each other, and it's allowed and it's fine.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe you went to a Lightning game,
It was a lightning game. Yeah.
so maybe somebody went after the captain, Steven Stamkos. Maybe somebody
I mean, this was
bought
years
into
ago.
him.
This was
Maybe
when that
somebody tried to
little
break his ribs, or somebody like try to like take out his knee or something. Maybe something like that happened, and then the tough guy from the Panthers, Lightning. He has to do something about it.
this was when that little guy Marty
St. Louis.
St. Louis was
He's
playing.
he's an absolute animal.
He also, I remember his height was not his height, and let's be real. Whatever height it was
Yeah,
he
he's like
gave,
5'5".
I
And
was like,
he
5'5".
was incredible.
Listen, he's 5'5" with his skates on. He ain't
Yeah,
5'5"
and he was one of the
with
best players in the league.
sneakers
His
on.
work ethic was nuts.
Very
And this is
fast, and
before
his legs were like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
This was when it was like that was the era,
Yeah, this is before the NHL rules like opened up like fast skilled players. Like back then you can hook and hold and clutch and grab. You can't do that now. And he was still like one of the best players. So maybe somebody went after him. Maybe somebody tried to take his knee out. Something. I mean, that's where
they'd
fighting
have to get real low to be doing that. But...
yeah, it's called submarine. Submarine. You have to like scrape the ice to submarine that dude. He's hurt his whole career. Like Stanley Cup champion.
I know, but he's still very much like people still very much respect him as a player. So I'm just dogging on him, but I don't
coach too, and we're the pigeons that are kind of like poking fun at him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's hockey's its own thing, and maybe another podcast episode I can kind of peel the curtain back because I think it 100% has its place. This is not, by the way,
this is not a sports podcast. We should talk. We're not a hockey podcast, F1 podcast, baseball podcast, or any of the others. We are an AI podcast.
In regards to our guest, Bernard, he was brilliant dude. He carved out some time, and great product. Gave some tips on when you deploy your first SaaS. From an SEO perspective, like what should you do? How to get indexed on Google, get it cranking. He shared some very good insight. Great interview.
Yeah, he's very interesting. Some of it was a little too techie for us beginners. But I do think that as we progress through the podcast and we learn more, that we'll be able to go back and listen to the podcast and really be able to understand some of the more in-depth things that he was talking about. Because he doesn't, like he says it, he doesn't speak to you like you're on necessarily his level of like knowledge, but he also doesn't talk to you like you're a complete idiot. There's like a balance in there. So I think the more that I, along with our viewers, learn and the more hands-on we become with AI, give it 6 months, we'll go back and understand everything that he was saying and referencing. But yeah, he was a great guest. So, but we'll be back next week with a whole new episode where we learn a bit more about AI. I'm trying to think if I've used AI this week. I mean, I have a little, just work-related stuff. I see all these people. Okay, I got to figure out how to do this. There's these people that they'll use ChatGPT and they'll like give ChatGPT a picture of their dog, for example, and they'll be like, they want to decorate their bathroom. So they'll take their dog and they'll be like, make pictures for my bathroom with this. And the dog will come out like in a towel wrapped around its head. And that'll be one picture. Or like a dog holding a toothbrush, or a dog in like a robe. Like I gotta figure out how it does that, because that would be really cool. But there's people who are not even in the AI space who just use AI like in their regular everyday life, and they create some like super cool stuff that I don't know how to do.
I've been messing around with Midjourney, which are like those videos, AI video generate. It's pretty cool stuff. Like I knew of it. I never like dove into that, but I'll text you some
Is
stuff.
that like the TikToks I was telling you about?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
they take like
probably.
they take Bigfoot and they do him as if he was
Yeah.
a vlogger.
The big
So
thing
great.
is like AI generated natural disasters.
Oof, I don't
Yeah,
want
we're
that.
just like I don't see that. So anyway,
That's a little not cool. Anyway, that's enough of that. I'm about to go and like die because we're under a heat dome here in Florida where our heat the last few days has been absolutely insane, miserably hot, more so than usual. So I'm gonna just go quietly overheat. And we'll be back next week with a whole brand new episode. So until then, stay safe and have fun messing around with AI.
peace.
Hello and welcome back to episode number 3 of the Code AI podcast with me, Caz, and Charlie over there. And you will see that we have our very first guest on our podcast. His name is Bernard Huang, and he is the CEO and the founder of Clearscope. So did a little research because, as our listeners know, I am new to the AI world. So I had to do a little research and some digging, and I found out some interesting things about you. Specifically, that you used to be a breakdancer and that you had a Dickie's barbecue franchise, neither of which have anything to do with what we're going to be talking about today. But I thought they were interesting. And I'm just curious, how does one go from a background as a breakdancer and a Dickie's barbecue owner to now working in AI?
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's awesome to be here talking about AI. It's shaking up the world as we know it. But I guess if you're in tech, how can you not be in AI these days, right? You just have to go with the flow, and the flow has taken us to a AI-driven world. But yeah, long story short, I've always been an opportunity seeker, a scout, if you will, and I've always followed my heart. And so my heart has taken me to breakdancing. It's taken me to, owning, at least as a part owner, a Dickie's barbecue pit. And I've just adventured where I've wanted to go, and the new frontier is AI. So I think with great opportunity comes great change, and great ways to scheme up ways to make a profit, and push what's going on to others.
So when you were back in your I also forgot professional poker player. I'm sorry.
I got to ask real quick, Bernard. Sorry, Kat.
No, you're
when
good.
you were a breakdancer, did you have a walk-up song?
Ooh.
I mean, I like the Pride FC song. That one definitely stuck with me. I think there was some YouTube videos where I would watch where, somebody would do a bunch of 1990s where they spin on one hand upside down to the Pride FC sort of soundtrack. And I was like, yes, that's it.
Okay.
So
real quick, what did you think of sorry, I'm totally going off the rails right now. Real quick, what did you think of the Olympic
that's where I was going. I was about
Okay.
to mention her, the Australian breakdancer.
Yeah.
I think she is the most popular, most notable breakdancer of all time. So depends on how you want to view it, in my opinion, right? If you want to view it as just a pure artistic expression, I think what she did was, art, as in, kind of finagling her way to the Olympics, getting such notoriety for, performing the way that she did. But, if I was to put on my breakdancing hat, it'd be yeah, this is kind of garbage. But I think what she's done and the sensation that she's created is bar none, right?
Yeah, I think I would agree that the art wasn't specifically the dancing itself, but more how on earth she conned everybody to get to the point where she got to. I think that would be more of the art. But then once she was on the stage, I don't know what you would call that. And I am not a breakdancing connoisseur, but I know enough to know that just was not it. Not at
Not
all.
it.
So whilst you were obviously with your breakdancing and your poker playing and owning the Dickie's barbecue pit, were you always dabbling in tech even throughout those kind of stages of your life, or are you sort of new to the tech world itself?
Yeah, so I guess sequentially it was like online poker, college, and then made a little over six figures, bought the restaurant, figured out that brick and mortar and restaurant biz is just really terrible margins, really hard to run. Taught myself, coding, got into mobile apps, raised some money on the East Coast from some investors, then failed, moved back to Austin, tried another tech startup, failed, said, okay, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, moved to Silicon Valley, joined a Y Combinator startup, learned the ropes after about a year and a half, said, okay, I'm ready to try it again, started an agency in SEO with my business partner, and then used that to bootstrap Clearscope, which is the software as a service that we currently run.
So having had the agency with your business partner, was working in that agency, was that when you identified that there was a gap that you could potentially fill with Clearscope? Was it as a result of doing that work where you were like, oh, hold on a minute, there's something else here that we can kind of move into?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, my general advice to non-technical people who want to spring out, run their own business is to do freelancing and consulting. So my business partner and I, we were doing a lot of, we call it large website or programmatic SEO. And that's when, it's like a Zillow or a Yelp or a TripAdvisor, but it's when a website takes a lot of data in a database and spins it into hundreds of thousands, if not millions of different landing pages that then act as doorways for Google searches to, capture. And so when working on that style of website, what you do is you run a lot of tests. Right. So you might say, okay, for the state of California, we're going to try adding a picture to all food delivery menu items. And then you might say, okay, but for the state of Texas, we're going to, add a, delivery time like mechanism so people can know about how long the food is going to take for any place that you order. And then you would do this rank tracker thing where you would then, have all the geographies multiplied by all of the different categories. And then you would say, okay, now we're going to test those different regions and see, what the average position delta and clicks delta is for those different regions. And so through a variety of different tests, one of the tests that my business partner and I ran was using natural language processing to understand whether or not a page had entity co-occurrence, which is just a fancy way of saying, right, if you're talking about, first president, you should probably mention George Washington, right? It's this idea that topics have different related topics that are closely, paired together. And when we ran that experiment, we saw the pages that had entity co-occurrence stuffed in. You can think about it as like modern day keyword stuffing. Those pages like got a plus 130% in traffic over like a 1 to 2 month period. And we're like, well, that seems to be what's working.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's massive.
Was when that happened, was there an algorithm change that nuked part of those, or I guess it'd be those pages that were optimized, or has it always been pretty solid with that technique?
Yeah, I think, if you go way back into the SEO like era where Google named things after cute little animals like pandas and penguins and hummingbirds, it was Hummingbird that really rocked the keyword-centric model towards a topic-centric model. And post Hummingbird, we have basically consistently seen a strong correlation with entity relevance and overall performance. Obviously, SEO is extraordinarily complicated, and it's not just, include the right topics and subtopics and you're going to rank, but, it's been tightly correlated ever since. And now, we are here to talk about AI. Now we're hearing the same things happening with large language models, right? They're looking at chunk similarity and cosine similarity and all these, sophisticated ways to just say, okay, within this passage, other topics should be there, and that makes for a good passage or paragraph or, piece of content.
Interesting. That's I'm stuck on that 130. That's crazy to me. Okay, so obviously you created Clearscope. What year did you found Clearscope in?
I'm old. 2016. It's been almost 10 years at this
goodness.
point.
Yeah, that's impressive. So what made you decide that rather than using existing solutions or solutions that you knew were going to soon be existing, what made you decide that you were going to create a new tool rather than use those?
Yeah, we've always wanted to be a product company from the get-go. Like, we were working on other projects before Clearscope. So, a website that my business partner spun up was called Twitch Metrics, which scraped Twitch viewership data, right? It's the esports streaming platform, and we graphed people's performance over time. And so you could see who the popular streamers were, how much time they were streaming, when they would stream, how much each game from a viewership perspective was getting, except, that didn't really make much money. And so, we pivoted and we launched a cloud, like, software as a service to help bakeries figure out their inventory. And that didn't make much money either. And so all throughout our consulting endeavors, we were using consulting to pay the bills while we could then experiment with different projects that we thought had room to grow and become a product.
So earlier you talked about how you failed a lot, but actually a lot of these things that you failed at, it seems like they led you into the direction kind of that you went. And would it be fair to say that each of these things that didn't work out or that failed, you can take a valuable piece of something you've learned from each of those things and then apply it moving forward into Clearscope and where you've been able to progress with that?
Yeah, I mean, in short, that's absolutely correct. Our first endeavor was this marketplace for home baked goods, because there was a law that passed that made it legal for home bakers to sell their goods, and these were called cottage food laws. And so what we learned from that is that you need a business model if you want to make money, right? Because taking 5 to 10% of a dozen cookie order that was like $12 to $20 was just simply not a sustainable business model. And you can imagine, once the relationships were brokered, there'd be a lot of, you call it platform slippage, but people would just text their favorite baker and be like, yeah, ship me one of those like dozen cookies and I'll Venmo you. So you would be immediately like cut out, and the business model was like not durable. Right. With software as a service for bakers, that was why we like evolved to that. Again, the business model was shaky because we're like, okay, we're going to charge $19 a month, and then we're like, how many people actually take that seriously to like do inventory management, this or that like a QuickBooks or a Xero wasn't already doing. And so if we're like, okay, we need 5,000 customers to make at $20 a month, that's to make like, I can't do them. Okay, to make like to make like $100,000 like a month. And it's like, oh my God, like, how are you gonna get 5,000 customers? So then you like start to learn about like market, like total addressable market, and willingness to like spend, and price sensitivity. And so, yeah, I mean, I suppose you can learn these things if you went to business school as well. But the business school for me was just like, oh, okay, that didn't work. Oh, okay, this didn't work. You have to sell something that people want to buy, and preferably people who have large wallets, and there's a lot of them.
And they're easy to find, huh?
Yeah.
That's it.
and you can reach them in an affordable way.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Just
it,
keep
right?
tacking them on.
Yeah. Let's go into Clearscope, the actual platform. Can you talk about it, like what it for our builder audience?
Sure.
What exactly it does? Can you just break it down, and then like how the AI works under the hood?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we started off in the early days with entity analysis. So like from a pure like step-by-step perspective, what we wanted to do was to help people understand whether or not content they were producing was relevant, on topic, and high quality in the sense that it covered all of the related topics very comprehensively. So, if you're like thinking about it from like a procedural point of view, you would type in a keyword like, best cannabis strains or something like that. And then we would hit Google and say, okay, well, what are the top results who are ranking for best cannabis strains? What are they talking about? So we would scrape their content, and then we would use natural language processing to say, okay, well, AK whatever or purple haze or whatever are these different strains that are coming out as entities or concepts that people are talking about. And then, we would then list all of the different entities and say, yes, you got to talk about these if you want to produce a great piece of content around best cannabis strains. We then further try to integrate it into people's workflows. So we built integrations to WordPress, Google Docs, Microsoft Word, where as you're writing within the normal text editors that you would normally be using, it's constantly scoring your content as you're writing. So you could very quickly see, okay, this is a crappy piece of content because it doesn't talk about these top strains that are likely very relevant to, covering the topic well.
Okay. So our background, we were chatting about this before we hopped on, is SEO, and we put such a big emphasis on, content creation. And Caz is very good at research, competitor analysis, and we call it Reaper. But competitor analysis, what are they ranking for? How are they doing it? Are they doing, what's their website structure? What's this? What's all of that? You had mentioned there's scores internally with your product. How is that score put together? And how can somebody, like, if I wanted to rank for something like I don't know, AI platform or something like how would that look inside your product?
Yeah. So you would go and say, okay, I want to write a piece of content that hopefully ranks for AI platform. And so you type in the search query, and we're in the next phase of development for evolving our platform to better fit, what's going on with AI, large language model search, and all of these different things. And so the next step of that process is then to figure out what is the actual intent that a user cares
Yeah.
about for AI platform, right? If you perform the Google search right now, I bet that, this is just me envisioning what the search results are likely to be. I envision that there's probably 3 or 4 products that you'll find surface, right? Whether that's OpenAI or Claude or, whatever other AI platforms are popular. There's probably 3 or 4 actual articles that are likely to show up, right? Kind of talking about what is an AI platform and why you need one or not today. So, we have around 6 to 8 of the top search results filled. And then there's probably like 2 that's like maybe some thought leadership pieces because AI is very trendy right now. Kind of like, should you be adopting AI platforms? Or like, oh, why, if you don't adopt one, you're going to be left in the dust, right? So you have to understand that when somebody performs a search, they have an intent. And Google has, now been subpoenaed enough for us to know that they use user engagement data to understand what users are clicking on, and more importantly, whether or not that content is giving the users what they need. So the front page of Google essentially acts as a window into, what users care about. And that's the next step in our platform, right? We say, okay, are you an AI platform? In which case you probably need a product page. If not, and you're creating a piece of content, there's four intents, or there's three intents, one dominant one around what is an AI platform, and one around, this angle of thought leadership, and one around this other angle. So what do you want to create on? So in this example, the user would likely select what is an AI platform, right? Because they wanted to create an article. From there, we give them steps to design the title, to create then an outline, and then we automatically pair the final piece of content with the searcher intent, and to make sure it's as entity rich. It's talked about OpenAI, GPT, Claude, Gemini, Sam Altman, all of these different relevant entities for that particular piece of content. And now you have a entity-rich, high quality, at least from a comprehensive standpoint, piece of content. And then you go to publish. So that's what our platform helps you with. And like you mentioned, SEO, I think there's like three very big parts of it. There's the technical aspects, there's the off page or the backlinks, and then there's the on page or the entities, the EEAT, the actual content itself. So we're just then in that one sliver of okay, this is the on page, but you still need other on page things, and you need off page, and you need technical SEO to make the full picture come together.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's say that, somebody listening, let's say that they build PDF.ai, just as an example. They put it together. They have their LLM of choice. Bam, it goes live, deploys. What are some tips for somebody deploying a new web SaaS on how to get their first, let's say, 10 customers?
Yeah, this is great. So this is, on to, you're a solopreneur, or you're vibe coding, some new apps and, products, platforms. Build in public is, a common community that you can find on X, or indie hackers, right? From, they were like bought by Stripe and then divested. But anyways, right? The indie hacker like movement. So distribution is everything in a world where a lot of software is being rapidly commoditized by vibe coding, large language models, all of that good stuff. So I think that the way to approach it has fundamentally changed from when, we got started 10 years ago. I think that 10 years ago, it was conceivable that you could slap something together, an MVP. You could then buy traffic using Google Ads or Meta or Facebook at the time, and point it to your page, and people would land there, and it could look not so polished. But as long as the offer kind of made sense and you targeted the right people, they would buy. However, in today's day and age, I don't know if y'all have ever seen that like chart of like, these are just all of the, email marketing tools. And it's just this crazy looking like box with mini boxes, all like in specific categories of like list building, prospecting, automation, like lifecycle marketing, e-commerce. And there's like, 20 players in like each. It's like, yeah, that's the world that we live in. And mind share is very hard to win in today's like world. So anyways, all of that's to say, the first 5 to 10 customers are going to be your friends and your ex-colleagues or current colleagues, or your parents, or your friends of friends. It always starts like that. And I think that that's also a really good resonance test, because if you write your friend or you text them and you're like, hey, I just launched this, you wanna buy it or test it out? And they're like, no. Well, then, you're really not going to be able to sell a stranger on it if you cannot sell your friend on it. So again, first 5, 10, you just text message, LinkedIn DM, X DM, whatever. whoever you've been talking to, your communities, that sort of thing, and you hope that people will buy it. But more importantly, you hope that people are actually buying it because they see value in it, not because they're your friend, right? The early buys, you never know. You're like, okay, $9 a month. I've known Charlie for years. Of course, I'll support him. And then Charlie comes in. Yeah, he checks in on me like 2 months later. He's like, hey man, like you're not using my thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. I just bought it to support you. It's like, okay, well, you don't want those kinds of customers. So yeah, that's the first 10.
How different when you first created Clearscope and you started with a vision that what you were going to do? Obviously, in 10 years, AI, SEO, all of that's changed dramatically. But how different is your product now from how you envisioned it when you first created Clearscope? And do you think it's better than what you first envisioned?
It's oftentimes the initial concept does not change much. That's just try it. You look at Salesforce and you're like, why does this look like utter crap still? It's because the first version is what had product market fit and what people got used to.
Right.
You look at pretty much all of them, right? Like MailChimp has, added some bells and whistles, and now they do more than email. But for the most part, everything is kind of more or less the same. And that's both the death and the curse, or like the gift and the curse of getting, something off the ground, right? You get something off the ground because you've identified a need that people are willing to pay for, and they get used to it. And then change becomes really difficult. So long story short, our platform has not evolved too much, but that's been the detriment of, like a lot of our customer base. Like for the longest time, we fought the AI content generation trend because our customer base were writers, subject matter experts. And we stuck by our mission and our values that we wanted to empower writers to create the best content given their expertise, not replace the writing altogether. We have since come around and we understand that AI, can replace some aspects of writing, but not all of it. And so we look at, what we're doing by introducing AI writing within our platform as assistance, right? As a way to expedite and help the writers just do more of what they're already good at. But yeah, I think change is hard. Change in platforms, change in workflows. And I think that, well, that's both the gift and the curse of having built something that, people like.
Yeah, I would agree. We said before we started recording this that I kind of got dragged kicking and screaming into the AI world by Charlie. So I understand what you're saying. People don't. We want things to be easy for ourselves, right? We want things to be fast or like at our fingertips. Or if I order from Amazon at 2:00, I want it at my door at 3:00. But we also don't like change as much as we want the change. We also, I think a lot of us, me included, don't like that change. So I understand what you're saying from like putting it into the way that something familiar to me is like I use Goodreads a lot, and Goodreads has needed a dramatic change since other platforms have come along, Storygraph, for example. And the most recent thing they did was they literally changed their icon. They gave nothing else to what people have been asking for at all. They changed their icon. And people have been asking for other things on the platform that other platforms provide. They don't do it or won't do it or can't, whatever it might be. So, but the icon change has been everything that people have been talking about. So yeah, in respect to the change thing, I fully understand it. Has there been anything like whilst building Clearscope that you off the top of your head that you would be like, oh, if I could do it again, I would not do that?
I mean, a lot, but it's also a lot of just conventional business, like sayings, really, right?
Right.
The whole work on the business, don't work in the business, hire the right people and put them in the right seats, make sure to make profit and revenue as quickly as possible, right? All of these things are so conventional because they are true, right? With one, I guess, caveat, if you want to be the next like Snapchat or Instagram or whatever, then, that's a completely different path of playing the entrepreneurial game that does not require at least some of the conventional wisdom to be true. But I'm purely looking at it from okay, if I were to bootstrap, another kind of business where the goal is to be more lifestyle, to make a healthy salary so that I don't have to work for, the man or the woman and, be part of the rat race, like, then, that this is the lens that I'm like, saying these things under.
Yeah.
So I have a question regarding quality versus quantity. So sticking with the scenario, I just deployed PDF.ai. What should my approach be with content creation? Should I just blast out like 100 pages and just try and get all of them indexed, or should I kind of throttle a little bit? Because Google Sandbox for context, brand new domains are so incredibly hard to rank versus established domains. So what's the strategy here?
Well, that's the strategy. Yeah. If we're talking about it from a pure SEO perspective, from a completely brand new website that has, that's getting off the ground, it's going to be really, really hard. So if you can take shortcuts, you should absolutely take shortcuts. A shortcut, for example, would be to buy an expired domain that has some amount of link equity already associated with it. And so you're not starting from scratch. Another shortcut could be buying a, again, seasoned domain that hasn't expired from a fellow indie hacker or somebody and, getting a kickstart that way. Okay, but back to the completely fresh, you just registered the domain on Gandhi, GoDaddy, Google, wherever you buy domains.
Just got up the sitemap. Yeah.
Yeah, you just uploaded your fresh sitemap. You're still brimming with energy and optimism. It's the first ever project that's gone live. Unfortunately, the best way is not publishing content on your own site. Is again to kickstart your SEO. It's to publish content on other people's sites, right? So like a good example would be, like Wix, or they have like a contributor program. So you want to go and find websites that are within your industry, at least somewhat related, right? I wouldn't want to go to some random publication that has nothing to do with what I'm trying to do. And you would want to try to get a guest post on their site that links to your site, because the most important thing to get off the ground is to prove to Google that you are legitimate and that other people want to link to you, and to actually make your site discoverable by Google and reinforce that confidence. So that would actually be where I would go first, is to other people. The other additional benefit you get from that is that you get to borrow their already existing audience, right? If you can get a Wix post published, then you're going to get traffic, referral traffic, and you're going to get that link equity that Google wants to see.
All right. Well, we got to wrap up because we are taking up too much of your time, but we're going to do 5 rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
5 rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
So the first thing comes to mind is going to be your answer. No pressure, but Okay. Besides Clearscope, what's your favorite AI coding tool?
Besides Clearscope, Claude.
Okay. What is the biggest AI trend that builders should watch?
Model Context Protocol.
Okay. What is one piece of advice for somebody who's building their first AI tool?
Ship quickly. I'm
Pretty
going
much.
rapid fire.
What's the most overrated AI trend you're seeing right now?
That one stumped me because I think that in some ways it kind of feels all overrated, but then when you start actually using it, at least my mind is my mind is blown. I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's overrated. I don't know if all of this is actually like overrated. I think I've talked about this with like other, friends and like teammates, but right, if you think about disruptive technology, I think internet is like, you know, way up here, probably in the, if we're like 0 to 100, like 100, right? Like internet is a massively disruptive technology. And then mobile phones, right? Mobile phones has been pretty darn disruptive, right? I'd probably place that at like 90 because it needed to be enabled by like the internet to be like that valuable. I put AI probably somewhere like at 95. Like I think it's more crazy than mobile, but I mean, it still needs the internet to like, be active. So I actually don't think that a lot of AI is overrated. The more that you get into it, the more that you play around with it, building your own fine-tuned models, few shot prompting, zero shot prompting, doing all of the nitty-gritty, the more I see why, it's gonna change and revolutionize pretty much everything.
In our last episode, Caz vibe coded her first app and she was like blown away. Like her skull like exploded. It's pretty cool actually. Like to see like what was possible, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was literally just like, I think we said in the episode, if I had been sitting with like, say, board members or a tech team, and we had really mapped out everything that we wanted and what we didn't want, if we'd have already had a solid plan, I think it would have been even closer to what the finished product will end up being. But we literally kind of just did it off the top of our head, like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think more experience with a tool like that, obviously being aware of what it can do, and also having a far more like a better frame of where we were going, what we were trying to do. I think it would have even blown my mind even more. Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
I think the best like analogy metaphor I know, cause you use a lot of them, is like we're going from like this era of like, using like cows and horses to like plow the fields, and all of a sudden somebody has come by and said, hey, look, there's like tractors and there's like mass like ways to do this. Do you want to use this new technology to basically greatly enhance your productivity and output? And some percentage of farmers are like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, and their outputs 10x, 100x. Whereas other farmers said, oh, that looks dangerous. I don't want to learn how to drive one of those things, and they got left in the dust. And I think that's how one should think about AI. Like if you use it, your productivity is gonna like 5x and 10x. And if you're not, like, you're just gonna be replaced not by AI, but by somebody who is using AI.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Because I mean, even in the short amount of time that I've been doing SEO, the productivity level from, Charlie calls it creeping, but like the research that I've been able to do, the competitive research, even the level of productivity increase I've seen by using AI instead of just me digging in and digging deep has been astronomical. So 100%, like, yeah, you are just going to get left behind because it can do what you can do quicker and better and more in depth. There's just no doubt.
So, quick, well, rapid fire question, unrelated to AI. Where's the best barbecue in Texas?
Ooh.
So my girlfriend and I just checked this place out. It's in Lockhart, which is known to be like the capital of barbecue in like the States. But it's called Barb's BQ. Like, oh my God. If y'all ever come visit in Austin, let me know. We can swing by, get some of the best everything that they have.
What do you get? That's my next rapid fire question. What do you order
I mean,
from
brisket,
there?
brisket. Like you go, if you're in Austin, if you're in barbecue capital of the world, it's all about the brisket. Like everybody compares brisket. Obviously, ribs and sausage and all of those things are excellent. Turkey breasts, but when you're here, you gotta order the brisket.
There's an F1 race that happens in Austin every year.
That's right.
And when the drivers are asked like what are their favorite locations and things, a lot of them will say Austin, and a lot of them will say not only is the track, but like the vibe of the town and the barbecue. Like they love that barbecue out in Austin, and they travel the world and eat all kinds of food. So it has to be pretty impressive if they're saying that. So
for sure.
I'm trying to get, me and Charlie are trying to hit up a race. So maybe
let me know if you're ever in town.
Okay, one more rapid fire, which this has not turned out to be rapid fire. And I think it kind of, your response might be similar to the last one I asked, which was, what do you think is the most underrated opportunity in AI right now?
Underrated opportunity in AI. Huh. All right, hear me out. I feel like as we get into this agentic world, every sort of like platform or app is going to have their own agents, right? If you use Google, it'll be like Google agent or AI mode or whatever. If you use Apple, it'll be Apple Intelligence. If you use Microsoft, it's Copilot, right? Every platform is going to have like their agents. I feel like one of the most like underrated opportunities is something to do with how agents like interact with one another, right? At the end of the day, right, Meta's Llama is going to want Google data, and Apple Intelligence is going to want like metadata, and Grok is going to want to be able to write something into Outlook. And so I feel like there's this whole like permissions like protocol that's like elusively not existent but needs to happen. I don't know if it's an underrated opportunity. I'm sure like lots of people are probably debating how to do it, and Microsoft I think just like announced something where they're like, here's like the HTTP of agents, like this is how this should work. But is Google really going to buy into that? I don't know. So I feel like there's something there about agents talking with agents and verifying facts and exchanging information and money, and maybe that intersects with the blockchain in a very interesting way with all of the developments that we see happening in like stable coins and payment rails and frictionless like stuff and microtransactions. So I think about that probably the most when I think about like what's going on with a lot of this AI and like Web3 like stuff.
That's actually interesting. I didn't think about. Yeah. Okay, well, we really do have to wrap up now. So I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come out and be on our podcast, and our new podcast at that, because sometimes, people don't want to hang out with people who are new. So thank you for that. If any of our viewers and listeners want to get in touch with you, obviously your website is clearscope.io. Is there any other platform that they can find you on if they're wanting to catch up and have a chat?
Sure, yeah. I mean, LinkedIn is great, X is great. I'm pretty responsive on either one. So feel free to connect with me on those. And, thank you for having me. I know it's incredibly difficult to get, traction to build an audience. And I'm grateful that, you had me as a guest. And I hope that, this podcast can continue to grow and, find much success.
Thank you very much.
I
Hopefully we'll
appreciate
have
that.
you back on again. Yeah, we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.